Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Wiley Solution Walkthrough. This is the 8th edition of Accounting Tools for Business Decision Making. This is problem 15-4, the textbook Accounting Tools for Business Decision Making, 8th edition. The authors are Paul Kimmel, Jerry Weingat, and Jill Mitchell. The question used in the presentation is copyright 2022 by John Wiley and Sons. All rights are reserved. This is for educational purposes only. The video may not be distributed or redistributed without the express permission of Wiley. The solution presentation is copyright 2022 by Bennett Tchaikovsky. All rights are reserved. The opinions contained within this presentation are those of Bennett Tchaikovsky and not the authors of the textbook or of Wiley. So I want to give a pretty big shout out to Wiley, and I usually do this in the videos, but their philosophy on this, because most publishers are very, they really will not let you share this publicly. But I like Wiley's philosophy because pretty much Chegg and Course Hero and all that other stuff, you can pretty much find the answers to any textbook questions on there, which really doesn't serve any type of like learning purpose. But at least if I'm, putting you to sleep or trying to entertain you, that might be hopefully a little bit better. So let's take a look at this problem 15-4. And I did like this one question just because it's kind of doing a little bit of a different take, having us think through things a little bit differently. So over here, we have Agassi Company, old tennis star, used to be married to Brooke Shields. Exciting. Uses a job order cost system in each of its 3 manufacturing departments. Manufacturing overhead is applied to jobs on the basis of direct labor cost in Department D, direct labor hours in Department E, and machine hours in Department K. In establishing the predetermined overhead rates for 2025, the following estimates were made during the year. Now, over here, though, it says the following information pertains to January 2025 for each manufacturing department. So let's kind of go through up here, and I'm just going to hide this really quickly so it's easier to kind of get the information. So for every cost in every department, it's kind of like looking at different work in process. You're going to have direct materials, direct labor, and then we're also going to have applied factory overhead. Because remember, when we're dealing with a job order costing system, we do not want to wait to invoice or basically to process our costs. We want to use an applied rate. So all 3 of these departments, we're going to be going through and trying to go through and figure this out. So we know that our direct materials for Department D are going to be 140,000, 120,000. For Department E, it's going to be 126,000. 110,000 for direct labor. And then lastly, over here is 78,000, 37,500. Now, this is the actual manufacturing overhead incurred. So we're not going to put that here. Rather, we have to figure out the rate and go through and apply it. So over here, the manufacturing incurred was 99,000 for Department D. This was 124,000 for Department E, and this is going to be 79,000 for Department K. So we have these 3 over here, and now what we're going to go ahead and do is try to go through and figure out what our rates are going to be. Well, when we're trying to go through and figure out our rates, every department here, it's being determined by a different, methodology. The very first one over here, manufacturing, is applied to the jobs on the basis of direct labor cost in Department D. So if it's based on direct labor cost, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, the following estimates. When I'm applying overhead, they're going to be based on estimates. So my total manufacturing overhead here was 1.2 million. And this is going to be for Department D. Let's try to make this a little bit bigger so we can hopefully more easily follow along at home. Okay, so my total manufacturing overhead for Department D was 1.2 million. Now it tells me that I'm doing this based on direct labor costs. So my estimated direct labor costs are going to be 1.5 million. So when I look at this, this is giving me 0.8. So basically, for every dollar of direct labor, we're going to apply overhead at this rate. Okay, so when I come over here and I look at this I'm going over here and looking at this, right? So my applied factory overhead is going to be 120,000 times my rate, which is going to be 0.8. And remember, when we're dealing with factory overhead, we're going to have actual and then we're going to have applied. So my applied factory overhead in this case is going to be 96,000. Let's go down and look at Department E. It says that Department E is being done on direct labor hours. So over here, so my total manufacturing overhead for Department E, that was estimated over here to be at 1.5 million. Okay, and my total direct labor hours, my direct labor hours were estimated to be 125,000. So my rate per direct labor hour is going to be 12 bucks, right? So again, how did I get over here? How did I get 96,000? Well, it's going to be 120,000 direct labor dollars times 0.8. Okay, that's where we got the 96,000. Okay. Over here, what I'm going to go through and do is say, okay, well, in Department E, we spent 11,000 hours. So I got 11,000 direct labor hours, Department E times the $12 per direct labor hour. So over here, this is going to be 12 times 11,000, or this is going to give me 132,000, right? So this is going to be my applied factory overhead, right? So this is what's going into this particular department. Now over here, my next one is basically looking at for Department K. So for Department K, it was being based on machine hours. So my total manufacturing overhead is right here at 900,000. So this is going to be 900,000. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this by my total machine hours, and my total estimated machine hours for Department K is going to be 120,000. So my rate per machine hour is going to be 750. So if I take the 750 rate per machine hour and I multiply it by the number of machine hours in Department K, which is 10,400, I'm going to basically come over here and get my applied factory overhead of 78,000. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what the questions want us to go through and answer. That's always helpful. So compute the predetermined overhead rate for each department. Well, it gives us here, it's 80%, 12 bucks, and 750. So we got those correct. Compute the total manufacturing cost in January to each department. So just notice over here when we're going through and doing this particular type of question in these, basically in these different problems, we don't use the actual amount of the overhead. We're going to be using the applied amount of the overhead. So this is going to be 356. This over here is going to be 368. And this last one over here is going to be 193,500. So right over here, basically, so compute the total manufacturing in January of each department. Now compute the under or over applied overhead as of January 31st. So when we look at this over here, right, if we were doing this in a typical problem, what we would need to go through and do is we would need to basically zero this out. So over here, I've got a balance of 3,000. I didn't apply enough. So this is basically going to be 3,000 under applied factory overhead for Department D. Okay. if I take the same type of methodology and I come over here, I had 132 that I applied, but my actual was 124. So this is going to be 8,000 over applied factory overhead for department E, right? Don't make it harder on yourself. Debit is the actual, credit is the applied. And if the applied is greater than the actual, which it is in this case here, the factory overhead is over applied. Come down here to the last one. This over here, this factory overhead is going to be over applied, right? So excuse me, it's going to be under applied. So factory overhead, we didn't apply enough. So factory overhead is under applied for department K. So again, by using T accounts, this can really kind of go through and help us. I like this problem, actually. I like the fact that it's actually having us use different drivers to go through and compute, which is going to be a great thing for us to go through and look at when we get to some of the other chapters. So that is problem 15-4. I want to thank Wiley for allowing me to use their material. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Have a great rest of your day.